Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. Today I'm joined by Neale to discuss the key injury and lineup news ahead of Gameweek 31. Neale, welcome. How are you?
I'm very good, Joe. Yeah, how are you? It's a lot easier this week, isn't it? Because there's half the number of teams in action, so it shouldn't be on too long.
It is. I've got them up on the screen here. It's just 5 fixtures here. I'm just going to remind people of them, especially for the podcast version. Bournemouth versus Newcastle, Burnley versus Leicester, West Ham versus Huddersfield, Fulham versus Liverpool, and Everton versus Chelsea. Some enticing matchups then, and some not so enticing ones. So I think what I'd like to do is start with West Ham. A visit from rock bottom Huddersfield makes their assets ideal for Game Week 31, I think. What news is there from the Hammers camp?
Yeah, as you say, West Ham probably aren't doing much themselves to encourage investment, at least not away from home. I mean, their home form is markedly better, but the fact that they're playing Huddersfield, it's an appealing prospect. They have nothing much to report on the injury front, but there were some choice quotes from Pellegrini on Arnautovic, who many people might be starting to look at, I think. The fact that he hasn't started a game since January is a bit off-putting, and Hernandez has sort of held that lone striker role for the past couple of game weeks. But we saw how woeful they were against Cardiff, which itself furthers Arnautovic's chance of a start, you'd think. And then we had these quotes from Pellegrini yesterday, which are even more encouraging. He says, I should just add a disclaimer, an asterisk before these comments, because they've been quoted in different ways, depending on which publication you read. What I think Pellegrini said, I haven't seen the comments myself, is if he's ready, I think that he will return to his position. Now, he preluded that by saying, explain the reasons why Arnautovic hasn't played. So, for example, the on-off China saga, the fact that he would have played against Manchester City, but got an illness. He had a few underlying issues. Of course, we know about his ongoing knee thing. But from Pellegrini's words, whether he's given the game away there or whether he's just, trying to prove that he hasn't got a problem with Arnautovic, it does sound encouraging. And as we say, the fact that they were so toothless against Cardiff, I would think all signs point to Arnautovic perhaps starting tomorrow.
Okay,
doesn't necessarily have to be at the expense of Hernandez. Of course, he could play a 4-4-2.
He has mentioned before, hasn't he, that he can play both up top. So one of the quotes I put up actually says he's ready to return to his position.
Yeah.
So I should be thinking in terms of if he's ready.
Yeah, I think so. Depending on which publication you've read and even our own site, there's been a little disparity between how the quotes have been transcribed. The sound quality on the press conference wasn't great. And Pellegrini's a bit of a mumbler at the best of times. I think he said it goes to mouth if, but nothing much comes out.
Right.
But the rest of that sentence is fairly positive. He would never give away his team sheet beforehand. It's not a conclusive quote to say he's definitely going to start. Okay. Whether something has slipped out more than what he intended, and sort of indicated that Arnautovic is going to start, then those comments, I think, are only positive if you're thinking about Arnautovic.
I mean, I think getting Arnautovic in is going to depend on the mentality of the fantasy manager anyway.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have a lot of form to go into this. So I think it's a risk in that context. But in terms of his potential, it's a real, risk and reward, big reward potentially. Huddersfield are that bad. And he is, we know, on his day, that good. What do you think of the hopes are for Anderson starting? Now, he was hauled off around 45 minutes last time out for tactical reasons. And tactical reasons does actually mean they're a bit rubbish. And, it was mentioned they weren't creating much, as in he wasn't. So they were going to get someone on that did. For example, in your team news page that you do, have you put Anderson in there? Do you think he's going to start, or a bit unsure?
I have. I'm still hoping that ex-West Ham employee pops up on Twitter with some kind of hint as to what will happen. Now, Anderson, yes, he was hauled off last week. He's never present this season. He started every league match. He's one of only, I think, 2 or 3 midfielders who's done that in FPL this season.
Okay.
So yes, he was off the boil against Cardiff. He has been subpar for a number of weeks now. We've flogged to death the stats about him having like one shot in 4 game weeks, and his key passes have really tailed off as well. He wasn't alone last week. I mean, Snodgrass was just as bad, Hernandez too. So yeah, it's difficult to say really. It's because they are blessed with a number of options in the attacking midfield positions now. I think the one thing we talked earlier about possibility of playing 4-4-2. Now the one downside to that is Lanzini's back, and he sort of plays as the number 10, and that would mean either shift him out to a wider position where he's perhaps less effective, or not playing him at all. Now he was substituted earlier himself as well last weekend, but he is just working his way back to fitness. So that would make me think that he perhaps isn't going to play with both Hernandez and Manuel, which might be wrong.
Okay.
But yeah, Anderson, it remains to be seen. Yeah, who would he play on that left flank? Perhaps Snodgrass, who was just as bad against Cardiff. So yeah, I mean, if you're an owner, you're obviously not going to sell, not unless you're blessed with having 11 players out in game week 31 already.
No, I'll take the 1 point and not have to take a 4-point hit to remove him. I'm actually not expecting more than 1 point. So literally anything, 2 points would be a bonus. But I wanted to ask, Anson's in a lot of teams, and I'm sure lots of us want to know. Let's move on to Bournemouth. They host Newcastle, making them another key team to focus on. Now, Fraser had a bit of a knock, bit of several knocks actually, kicking the living daylights out of him last time he was on the pitch. But will he be fit?
Yeah, I was watching this game last weekend. I was on duty on the Saturday for a change, and my heart was skipping a beat because they were kicking lumps out of him. Huddersfield. Yeah, it sounds like he's going to be fine.
Okay.
Howe said he's missed a couple of training sessions earlier this week. I mean, he was pictured in training on Tuesday, so I think he's going to be all right. And he was almost taken aback when someone said, "Oh, is Fraser okay?" And he sort of had to say, "Oh, yes. He missed a couple of sessions, but I think he's going to be okay. He should be okay." So when he was rounding up his injury news, he says we're in the same position as we were last week with the pool of players available. So I would think Fraser's going to be all right.
Okay, yeah. Now Eddie Howe, you know that Eddie Howe, he's a tinker at these press conferences, and surprise benchings, surprise injuries, players he said are going to be fine aren't, players he says aren't going to be fine are. What's your gut feeling? Fraser plays?
There is that. Yeah, we should say that we've learned the hard way this season that he will pull the rug from under us and either declare someone fit to play and then won't start them, or vice versa. I think so. Okay. I think so. There is rumours that Fraser will miss the first of Scotland's international fixtures with international break, because I think Scotland's playing on artificial turf, and I think they're worried about Fraser's knee. So yeah, if he's already got that agreement in place, or if they've been told that that's going to happen, then you might chance him anyway.
Okay.
Judging by his reaction and my very, very rudimentary knowledge of body language, even though he's got a good poker face, I would say that the prospects are good.
Okay.
But he's possibly the most impenetrable manager in the Premier League in terms of team news. So be prepared.
Okay. Now, I put on screen some quotes from Callum Wilson about Callum Wilson from Howe. Now, well, you can read the quote, but if Callum Wilson doesn't take to the pitch, then Eddie Howe is an absolute king of the tinkers. He really is. What has he been saying about him?
Yeah, this would be more of a shock if Wilson doesn't play. He said he came through the 90 minutes against Huddersfield, wasn't tired at all. He's trained all week, was in a good place. So stand by for a benching in game week 31. Yeah, he sounds fine. He sounds like I watched the game. He looked very sharp. Doesn't seem to be having any ill effects. I think, was he named in the England squad?
He is. He's named in the England squad.
Yeah.
House says Cam's good, incredibly well physically, trained well. He's in a good place. Doesn't look tired or fatigued. I mean, it just, and then you see him bench. I'm going to get Wilson in. I'm doing it, and there's just no way Eddie Howe is gonna. That would just be too much, even for him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like he's just coming back to fitness as he was last week. He's played a game now, and
Just
unless something happens in the coming 24 hours, then um,
okay.
I'm predicting him to start. I should just say there's a couple of other injury
Yeah.
nuggets from Bournemouth.
Yeah.
They've without Stanislas again. Adam Smith's going to be out
Right.
for a couple of weeks. He's got a hamstring, so he's expecting Nathaniel Klein to come back in,
Okay.
right back. Steve Cook's still out, and Dan Goslin's out as well. So
Okay.
already got a lengthy injury list.
So Charlie Daniels will probably play as well. So
Yeah.
I just flag him up because he's cheap. So if someone needs an enabler, it's very likely he'll start as well. What about Newcastle as well? Now they've got a number of injuries at the back, haven't they? Lascelles, for example, any chance he'll play?
No, even better news for Bournemouth, really. Newcastle's going to be without two of the three centre-halves that have had a very, very settled back line for much of 2019, actually. The form's been very good. And that back three of Lejeune, Lascelles and Shaw, well, two of them is going to be unavailable. Lejeun's suspended this weekend, and Lascelles isn't going to be risked. Gordon Benitez was just given his press conference an hour ago. So he's got a knee problem. They're going to assess him over the coming days, but he won't feature. Now, they do have Kieran Clark back, who is a centre-half who can fill in. They've also got Fernandes.
Now, Kieran Clark has a bit of goal threat about him.
He does.
As well. Once for the risk taker out there, perhaps on a free hit, Kieran Clark could be. You never know. I just wanted. Carry on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he's even though he's fit and Newcastle's down two centre halves, I wouldn't even say he's guaranteed to play because they've also got Paul Dummett, who is ostensibly a left back, but he's more likely to play centre back than he is wing back in this system. I think Newcastle fans like myself have long said he's much better centre half. He's good in the air and he's a limited in terms of possession and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he got the nod over someone, say Clark, as the left sided centre back.
Right, yeah. I just wanted to go back to West Ham for a minute. A rotation FPL on the live chat has very kindly reminded us that Balbuena is sitting in some teams still. He's been injured for a while. Back now. Do we think that he'll earn a start for West Ham?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you that. He made the bench against Cardiff. Certainly, Ogbonna and Diop weren't great, but as we've said before, West Ham's much better at home than they are away on the travels. Whether he's seen enough in that performance to drop, probably Ogbonna, who was the one who replaced Balbuena back in was it December? I think he got injured.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah, so it would be him. I would think that would be at risk if Pellegrini decides to play him. He's fit, obviously, so he's got the option to do so. But I couldn't shed you any light on that.
Okay.
Hopefully, we will get some in the know predictions from Twitter in the next 24 hours.
Okay, next up, Chelsea. They travel to Everton. Now, Chelsea's Europa League lineup, we think, has given us some really nice clues as to who will play at Goodison Park. Who do we think is going to start? And also, I wanted to ask about Higuain as well. He's had been a bit under the weather earlier in the week, so we'll see if there's any latest on that.
Yeah, he was left at home. He was the only one who wasn't included in the travelling party. He went to Kiev on Thursday. He had a fever and a stomach ache. Now, it sounds very much like he's going to be all right.
Okay.
The sort of the words coming out of the Chelsea camp are that he's going to be all right. That it was just precautionary to give him an extra couple of days to recover. And I think the only other injury doubt they've got is Zappacosta, who limped off, but he's not going to be bothering many people's fantasy teams. So yeah, as you say, a good indication of the team on Sunday is how Sarri lined up last night. So we saw, for example, Alonso playing at left back ahead of Emerson. So we would anticipate Emerson coming back in this weekend.
Yeah, bad news for Alonso owners.
Emerson could be worth which there are still quite a few actually, even amongst the top 10k. We saw David Luiz get a rest. Hazard got a rest. I think Jorginho and Kanté had their minutes managed, so they'll probably play Azpilicueta same. Yeah. Further forward is probably where the decisions lie. So Willian played the bulk of the Thursday night game, so you'd possibly expect Pedro to come back in on Sunday, and the same in central midfield where Kovacic played the full 90 minutes. That would maybe indicate that Barkley's going to get a start on the left midfield. That's not always the case. what happened last weekend, where I think Kovacic plays both, but the indications are, so he said himself in the past that he would manage his Europa League squad accordingly. So we are predicting that Pedro would start on the right of a front three with Hazard and Higuain.
Now that's interesting for me because, like many others, I don't have Hazard, and I don't think I can without dumping someone like Pogba, who I have a lot of money tied up in. Now Pedro is someone I've been thinking about. I put it up on Twitter today, and I got a surprisingly positive reaction from many, apart from Az, who just said he wasn't a very good pick, put it that way. But I do think Pedro could be a good pick. It was pointed out to me on Twitter that Pedro has had an attacking return in half of the matches where he's played 60 minutes or more, and that's the key with Pedro.
Yeah,
he won't play 60 minutes or more, we don't think, but I think this time around, game week 31, because of that rest, he came on as a sub, I believe, in Europe. He could start, and also game week 33. If he's rotating with Willian, and Willian plays for Brazil, I don't know if he's been called up. I think he has. And Pedro is no longer playing internationally. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. As I said, I feel a bit more liberated to put that out there after getting a positive response on Twitter. And I'm sure people won't perhaps be so kind on the YouTube comments, but nevertheless, it's an option, I think. But as you said, Hazard, Luiz, Azpilicueta, some of these other names, these are the kinds of players that people are thinking of bringing in, or already have. They sound pretty safe. And Higuain, you reckon? I think it does sound quite positive as well.
Yeah.
More the fact that they just didn't want him, being ill, travelling all that distance, and recover. Now, what about Everton as well? Have there been any news there for which might either help those looking for Chelsea assets, or indeed those looking for an Everton asset? I don't know whether anyone would be for this fixture.
Yeah, Everton's getting a few players back. Coleman and Baines are both going to be back. I would certainly expect Coleman to come in for Kenny after what happened at Newcastle a couple of weeks last weekend. And they were only without Jackie Elgao's got a small problem, unspecified, and Kurt Zouma, who's ineligible to play Chelsea, who's his parent club. So you're going to see Yerry Mina alongside Michael Keane at centre back. Now I think those two defenders kept out Chelsea at Stamford Bridge back in the reverse fixture.
They did. They impressed actually. Luca Dean impressed very much so. He got bonus that day. I wish I had him still, even though I think Chelsea will score. He's a good option.
I sold Dina for Pereira, and ever since, I wouldn't like to do the calculations as to how many points I've lost out on him. But even last week, he got an assist in defeat. So
I'm going to try and forget it and move on to next season. It's just such a horrible move. Let's look at Liverpool. Talk about plum fixtures. Liverpool travelled to the perennial whipping boys, Fulham, with their League One style defence. What news is there from Klopp, particularly about two of his key attacking players? I understand he's been speaking about Salah and Mane this week.
Yeah, not much injury news that would concern fantasy managers. They're going to be without Henderson, it looks like. Keita might be back, but nothing that would alarm majority of FPL managers. Yeah, there was much talk about the buy-in game, and one report asked about Salah's form compared to Mane's. As you'd expect, he backed both players, saying that Salah's in outstanding shape, I think his words were. Pointed out, I don't know if you saw the game, that the chance where actually Salah should have squared it to Mane. He ran through, sort of jinked through the buying defence and was just about to pull the trigger. Probably would have scored when a covering buying defender got back and towed it away. So you were highlighting the sort of slim margins between Mane and Salah at the moment. He did add actually that at Mane, the first goal he scored where he collected that long ball from Van Dijk and then sort of sidestepped Neuer and chipped it in. So it highlighted how confident he is in front of goal, that he probably wouldn't have scored that if he'd been on a barren run of 5 or 6 games without a goal. Ooh. So there's no doubt that Mane is the confident man. We've done the stats comparisons to death on the site over the past weeks and months. Salah's got the better underlying stats away from home recently, but Mane is the man in form. Looks more clinical, doesn't need as many chances. So own both. It's just how you captain, I suppose, this weekend.
Yeah, I own both. I'm still undecided. It's currently on Salah.
Yeah, me too.
What it is not just the underlying stats away from home for Mane. It's the fact that he only scored 3, I believe. I think it's 3 out of his 16 goals have come on the road. That is a bigger concern, but it is Fulham. And also, of course, Bayern was away. Now, I find it tricky with international form and Champions League form and Europa form. It's a different type of competition, can be a different style of play in a way. So I don't take a lot of that, but those away goals at Bayern certainly indicates that he doesn't really care where he plays. And as you said, he's the man in form. So I think that's going to go right to the wire with me with those two. But I'm very pleased I own both. I think that's key there. Now I wanted to have a look at the other fixtures. I think we've only got one left there by my calculations, and that's Burnley against Leicester. So first of all, on the Leicester front, has Brendan Rodgers had much to say about his team? I don't think there's much on the injury front, but he's sometimes a bit chatty about how he's lining up and his attackers.
Yeah, I mean, obviously no indications as to the lineup. As you say, not much to report from the injury front, just 2 long-term injuries to Amartey and Albrighton. Again, plenty of positive comments about Vardy, as there were last week, saying how tactically adept he is and how he's not just a goal scorer, how the whole high pressing game is built around Vardy from the front. So he sounds like there's a bit of a bromance developing there. He's certainly a fan of Vardy. Probably politically, that's a good move as well, because he doesn't want to risk an instant revolt amongst the Leicester players by getting on the wrong side.
History shows if you get on the wrong side of Jamie Vardy, you tend to leave Leicester.
Okay. So I think there's options really for how Rodgers wants to line up. We've only seen 2 games under his stewardship at Leicester, both of which he played with different formations. Now he played with a 3-4-3 sort of wing-back system against Watford.
Yes.
Watford playing exactly the same formation as Burnley do. So he might revisit that, even though they got beat. Suggested that he might bring in an extra centre half to deal with Wood and Barnes.
As an Ashley Barnes owner, if they bring Wes Morgan on, it's celebration time, because Wes Morgan is the destroyer. Not Leicester need much help to destroy their own clean sheets, but Wes Morgan, there's guaranteed no clean sheet when he's on the team sheet. You wonder, because they did look better in the next game where they went more of a 4 at the back. So I wonder.
I mean, the caveat to that is, of course, it was Fulham, and then they were in home style, and that they got about them in terms of that press from the front. But there was 1 or 2 sort of, Demarai Gray, for example, wasn't that good, didn't play that well, so he would be the sort of possible fall guy if they did decide to switch to the 3-4-3. We don't really know how he's going to line up, but I would expect the well-owned fantasy assets of Vardy, Maddison, Barnes, Chilwell, Pereira to line up in whatever system they play.
Okay, and what about Burnley as well? Now they're an odd one. Burnley, they've actually kind of, compared to their early season form, they're doing really well at the moment in general. But they have had a few injuries as well, particularly in midfield. Are there any notable concerns ahead of this match?
No, there isn't. The same situation as it was last week, really. Okay. Stephen Defoe's out for the season. They might get Lennon back in a couple of weeks, but the chief fantasy assets are all available by the looks of it. He'll face a choice between possibly bringing in Goodmanson, who's just languished on the bench for the last God knows how many weeks. And he played Hendrick on the right, but Goodmanson came on and scored last weekend, so he's a possible change to the team sheet. I should just point out one thing, Joe, before we go. William's not in the Brazil squad, so that might change.
No, thanks for that. That's a good update.
According to Wikipedia, anyway, and they're never wrong.
Okay, no, that is a good update, because any player I get in, and for anyone watching, getting in and they're free hitting Gameweek 32, if you're doing that strategy, any player you get in for 31, it has to be for 33 as well, really. Okay, interesting. Also, before we go, although this is focused on the teams that play in Gameweek 31, there's been a bit of injury news from Manchester United, who play in the FA Cup. What's Solskjaer been saying about Lukaku?
Yes, so they're getting a few injuries names back from the fitness table. So Herrera's, nearing in on return. Same with Lingard. Jones is fit. Yeah, Lukaku's picked up a foot problem. Apparently flared up last weekend against Arsenal. Now, he was only rated a doubt by Solskjaer in the press conference. He even suggested that he might train on Friday and then be in contention. But we've heard Martinez, who's done this before, he's the Belgian manager, who's come out and announced team news on behalf of another Premier League manager and been called out for it, actually. And he's done it again. He said that Lukaku is not going to play against Wolves in the FA Cup. And he's only 50-50 to play for Belgium over the international break. So, yeah, as I'm sure you were thinking yourself, Lukaku was a differential of sorts to consider for double game week 32. Yes. So hopefully we'll get some kind of clarification before we return again in a fortnight's time. But he's got a yellow flag on him now in FPL, and I think that's warranted too.
Okay, that could have a bearing on people who perhaps have a bit of money tied up with Rashford, who are thinking of selling, because that would pretty much nail Rashford to a central striking role in Manchester United's double game week 32. Something out there. I think that's probably something, though, as you said, once we get a bit more information, we can give a bit more clarity about that for one of the future videos we do over the next week or two. But for now, Neale, thanks so much for that. Lots of interesting things to ponder from the press conferences. But thank you, and good luck with the game week.
You too, Joe. Yeah, see you soon.